Today we're going to look at how we find fractions of whole numbers. For instance, if we had the question, what is 1/8 of 32? The first thing that we need to draw our attention to is the denominator. And the denominator is the lower portion of a fraction. It tells us how many equal groups we need to divide our whole number into. And our first denominator is 8. So we need to divide 32 into 8 equal groups. So the first step is I drew 8 equal groups, and now I'm going to count to 32, making sure that I make 8 equal groups. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32. Now I know that I have 8 equal groups of 32 dots. Next, I turn my attention to the numerator. My numerator tells me how many of the groups I want to focus on. And because my numerator is 1, I focus on just one of the groups. And I notice that there are 4 dots in that one group. So I know that 1/8 of 32 is 4. Let's take a look at another example. For instance, what is 5/8 of 32? Again, the first thing that I want to do is I want to know what my whole is. My whole is 32. So I'm going to represent 32 dots as an array right now, making sure that I count up all 32 dots. 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, and 32. So now I have 32 dots, and I focus my attention again on the denominator. I know that my denominator is 8, so I need to divide this array of 32 into 8 equal groups. And it's important that the groups are equal. And I recognize that I can have 8 equal groups, and in each group there are going to be 4 dots. I then turn my attention to my numerator, which is 5, and my numerator tells me how many of the equal groups I really want to focus on. And it tells me to focus on 5. So I just look at 5 of these equal groups. And then I ask myself, well, how many dots are in these 5 equal groups? Well, if I know that each group has 4 dots in it, and there are 5 groups, then there must be 20 dots in these 5 groups. So I know that 5/8 of 32 is 20. Now let's take a look at a more challenging problem. For instance, what happens when our numerator is greater than our denominator? In the next problem, we are going to look at what is 9/8 of 32. Again, we start these problems in a very similar way. We want to ask ourselves, how can we divide 32 into 8 equal groups? The denominator is 8, and it tells us to divide 32 into 8 equal groups. So I'm going to go ahead and make an array of 32 dots on my paper. 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32. So now I've got an array of 32 dots, and my denominator tells me to make 8 equal groups. So I circle up my dots, making sure that I've got 8 equal groups. But then I look at my denominator, and my denominator is 9. And my numerator is 9. My numerator tells me how many of these equal groups to focus on. But I notice that I only have 6, 7, 8 groups. Well, how can I find 9 equal groups? Well, we can go ahead and create a 9th group. And we see that each equal group has 4 dots, so we can just go ahead and add 4 dots into this group to make 9. So now my question is, how many dots are in these 9 equal groups? What is 9/8 of 32? So I take my 9 groups. I notice that each group has 4 dots in them, so I know that 9 times 4 is 36. So there must be 9/8 of 32 is 36. And this would make sense because 9/8 is greater than 1, so we know that we don't just have one group of 32, we've got more than 32. As we become more familiar with fractions, we're going to learn a bit of a shortcut, and some of you may be recognizing this shortcut right now. We'll talk more about the shortcut later. Let's take a look at a challenging problem. This problem asks us to find what is 1/4 of 10. And in order to do that, we need to make 4 equal groups. Remember, the denominator tells us how many equal groups we need to make. So the denominator is 4, so we break this into 4 equal groups. And we're going to go ahead and draw 10 dots. 8, 9, 10. And then we ask ourselves, did we make 4 equal groups? Well, no, we clearly haven't made equal groups. And that's a problem. When we're dealing with fractions, we need to make sure that we're dealing with equal groups. So we're going to go ahead and erase these extra 2 dots to make sure that all 4 of these groups are equal. Nope, now I've erased a little bit of the 10. Sorry, let me go ahead and fix this. So again, what is 1/4 of 10? And we've drawn 4 equal boxes, 4 equal groups, and then each group has 2 dots in it. But have we gotten to 10? No, we only have 8 dots drawn. So we actually have these 2 dots that are actually left over. What are we going to do? What are we going to do with these 2 dots that are left over? Well, I know that I can split these up. I need to use all 10 dots, so what if I just put half a dot in this first group? And I took the other half of a dot and put it in this group. And I've got 1 dot left over, and I split that in half and put 1/2 in each group. And now let's go ahead and make sure, are these groups equal? Well, yes. Do they equal 10? Well, let's count. 2, 4, 6, 8. These 2 halves come together to make 1 whole, so that's 8 plus 1 is 9, and these 2 halves come together to make 1, and 9 plus 1 is 10. So I have used all 10 dots. And again, my numerator tells me how many of these groups I should really focus on. What do I need to draw my attention to? My numerator is 1. My denominator is 4, right? So I've made 4 equal groups, and they all have the same amount of dots in them. And again, my numerator is 1. So it says how many we need to focus on. Well, look at one group. And one group has not just 2 dots, but 2.5 dots. So I know that 1/4 of 10 is 2.5. Again, there are many other strategies that we can use, but we're going to begin with this visual strategy of dividing our whole number into equal groups first before we learn the shortcut. I hope this has helped.